ESPN has disrespected the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not really a shock as the Jaguars have faced a little bit of scrutiny from, I think, a lot of major media outlets from around the National Football League. But we're going to be discussing why I think ESPN's recent evaluation of the Jacksonville Jaguars just isn't correct. This is Jags Now, powered by Chat Sports and presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. I'm your host, Cullen Brown. And guys, I'll be honest, I'm a little tired of ESPN. Like the ESPN that I grew up on when I was a kid, it's just not the same product as it is today. Are you tired of ESPN? Type Y for yes, type in for no. It's just not the same as it once was. This is why we do things differently here at Chat Sports. Let me know down in the comments section. All right, so ESPN released their FPI rankings ahead of the 2026 NFL season, and we'll get into what FPI rankings actually are, but this is how the Jacksonville Jaguars rank. You see the Rams at number one. They obviously traded for the defense of the year, player of the year from last season and Myles Garrett. They're ranked number one. And you see a lot of, names in terms of teams that are usually up at the top. The Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the defending champion Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers, Green Bay Packers, who I think the Packers are really high. I'm not sure how they got up that high. But then, you go down that first column, the Jaguars are not even listed on there. In fact, they're at the top of the second column at 17. Guys, I don't know if you know this. There are 32 teams in the National Football League. They rank the Jaguars as not even a top half of the league team. They won 13 games last year and won the AFC South. How did we get to this point? Well, ESPN gave a definition on their FPI rankings, just overall kind of, hey, this is the reason why the rankings are what they are. FPI's preseason predictive ratings are primarily based on win totals from the betting market in conjunction with each of the team's schedule, along with factors such as the difference between a team's starting and backup quarterback, and a special teams rating that incorporates specific kickers. We use these ratings to simulate the season thousands of times with the results forming our projections. And specific kickers and the difference between starting quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks. And guys, analytics are useful. You see it on plenty of different outlets, including this one, that analytics are useful to football. It's the way that, we try to become smarter as fans, the way teams are able to become smarter and overall improve their process in the way they do things. But there has to be a balance with analytics, right? And again, I get that ESPN was just running a simulation, 1,000 times, and this was the numbers that they came up with. But the game of football has never been played on a piece of paper. It's been played on a grass field that is, has two goalposts, it has two sidelines, it has 100 yards between each end zone, and it's not been played by computers or spreadsheets. It drives me crazy whenever these kind of articles come out, but not to say that analytics aren't useful, but this especially just really drove me up a wall a little bit. And ESPN even went further in their article discussing the best playoff odds in each conference. And I went ahead and just kind of cropped it for the AFC version here, obviously with the Jaguars residing in the AFC. These are the percent chances for each of the following teams to make the playoffs in the AFC. Bills at just under 85%, the Ravens 82.5%, the Cincinnati Bengals at 69.2%, nice. Chiefs at 67.6%, Chargers 65.1%, Patriots 61.1%, Texans 57.9%, and the Jaguars at 54.0%. And again, I don't know if you guys have done math or paid attention to football recently, but if you want to make the postseason, you have to be a top 7 team in your conference. And if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there are 7 teams ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Basically, ESPN is alluding to the fact that they don't think the Jaguars are a playoff team this upcoming year. I'll get into more why that's ridiculous. But then we get into the best chance to win the Super Bowl. And again, this is one of those where it's like, okay, we need to understand that the Jaguars, they got Super Bowl aspirations, but this is just another kind of graphic where I'm like 2.9% chance that the Jaguars can win the Super Bowl. I can't get over it, man. Like ESPN clearly is saying that the Jaguars are going to regress. They just are. And we're going to talk about why I think that's ridiculous on the back half of this episode. But first, a word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. And before we get into today's show's lineup, guys, I need your help. Amongst AFC South hosts here at Chat Sports, we are dead last when it comes to Prize Picks followers on the app. Titans host is leading the way with 38 followers. Our Texans Today host is second with 31 followers. And Billy BB, our Colts host, is third with 14 followers. I'm not going to lie, I'm getting a lot of flack for it in the office. If you guys want to follow me on PrizePicks, you see the follow at down below at CullenBro21. And again, I'm not going to win every lineup, but I've had some winners back in my day. You can actually see some of the lineups that I've hit on with our friends over at PrizePicks. This is a 4-pick flex play lineup that I hit $233 to win $292. Hey, sometimes you need a win, and I won pretty big there. This is also a bonus hoops season-long lineup that I turned into $200 here. Just another example of a winner. And then I'm not afraid to dive into other sports as well. Here's a college football lineup, a $55 lineup that I turned into $110 right here. And for today's show, guys, I'm rolling it back with a football season-long lineup, a little two-player action. Give me the more on Emeka Buka's receiving yards for this upcoming season. And Bashal Tutin, I think he's going to get a lot of touches. Give me the more on his rushing yards. $20 lineup to win $60 here with our friends at PrizePicks. The app is really easy to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. New user offer. Download the PrizePicks app today with the link in the comments and the description and use code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, so getting back into it here, because again, just the spreadsheets, the whole analytical thing of it. All right, so let's form a baseline here. Where were the Jaguars exactly when it comes to 2025? Obviously, we know the results of what happened. They won 13 games. They won the AFC South. Ultimately got bounced in the wild card. But in terms of just diving just a little bit deeper, right? In terms of the defensive numbers that I'm showing you on screen, yards per game allowed. They averaged about 305 yards allowed per game. That was good for 11th in the National Football League. Everything in the parentheses is the NFL rank. Pass yards per game, 20th in the NFL. Rush yards per game allowed. They were number 1 in the National Football League at 85.2. And part of the reason that their pass yards weren't allowed or was so high was 2 of their premier players in the secondary, Travis Hunter, although he didn't play many snaps in 2025 in the secondary, but also Jordan Lewis dealt with injuries, and they just overall weren't as talented as they are coming into this season, but I digress. Points per game allowed, they were top 10 at 9th. And total takeaways, they were second, only behind the Chicago Bears. Their defense was really good, and if it weren't for a couple injuries, maybe their passing defense would have been a little bit better. Let's look at the offensive side of the football now, right? Pass yards, or yards per game total, they were top 10. Pass yards, they were 12th. Rushing yards per game, they were 18th, so a little bit of mid of the pack, but we'll get into why I think those numbers are slightly misleading. Points per game, they were tied for 5th, and total giveaways in terms of giving the ball away, tied for 13th. You want that number to come down, no doubt about it. But the offensive numbers weren't as great as they were defensively. That being said, slightly misleading in terms of the stats. And one thing that really changed this Jaguars team from 2025 was the trade deadline. And more specifically, whenever they made the trade for Jacoby Myers from the Las Vegas Raiders, in which they gave up 2 day 3 picks in this previous draft back in 2026 in exchange from the wide receiver that previously played for the Las Vegas Raiders. And Jacoby Myers just changed this offense for the better. I mean, he was somebody that instantly came in where Parker Washington hadn't quite established himself into the force that he became last season. Brian Thomas Jr. wasn't quite at the level that he was at his rookie season. He was going through some things in terms of fitting into Liam Cohen's offense. But the second that they entered this man that you see on screen, he completely changed the life for Liam Cohen in Jacksonville in the offense. And, one of the things that he really helped out was Trevor Lawrence, who was having a really tough, start to the year and overall just, wasn't his best self. And those last 8 games, whenever Jacoby Myers was acquired, I think this took out maybe the initial game that he was acquired because he didn't have a full week of practice at that point. But Trevor Lawrence really turned it on. Those final 8 games, almost completed 63% of his passes, threw for over 2,000 yards, had a 19-5 touchdown interception ratio, almost a 4-1 touchdown interception ratio, quarterback rating of 106.1, and 5 rushing touchdowns, en route to being 3rd in MVP voting for this past season. Trevor Lawrence. And the offense truly was clicking at a different level once Jacoby Myers entered into that lineup, and it was a night and day difference from the first kind of part of the season. And you might be sitting there saying, well, Cullen, maybe ESPN is discrediting the Jaguars because of some of the losses they had this past season. And look, there are some notable players that are no longer on this roster that are going to be in 2026. Travis Etienne left in free agency. He's headed to New Orleans. Devin Lloyd also left. He is headed to Carolina to play football here next season. Andrew Wingard is going to be a safety for the Arizona Cardinals. Johnny Munt's going to play tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Greg Newsome, who really wasn't playing his best ball for you, he's headed to the New York Giants. I'll say this, Andrew Wingard, he was going to be out regardless, right? Like, he was just somebody that was kind of an older safety who was productive for you last year, but they had guys that they believe in and younger spots at safety. Johnny Munt was a blocking tight end, didn't perform the best. He moves on to Philadelphia. Greg Newsome, that Tyson Campbell trade, it was just kind of a lose-lose for both teams. He's on his way to New York. It's good to get him off your books. It sucks that you were going to lose Travis Etienne and Devin Lloyd, but you kind of knew that going into the offseason, and they did some things in order to kind of, revamp that linebacker and running back room specifically. Speaking of, one of the key additions that they did add was Chris Rodriguez, the lone external free agent addition by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He comes over from Washington, so he'll pair with Bashal Tutin to form that rushing attack. I think he and Tutin will be adequate in replacing Travis Etienne. Ruka Roro along the defensive line. He should give you some extra juice along with Albert Regis, who you took in the NFL draft, alongside Nate Borkature, who replaces Johnny Munt role, and he will be the second tight end behind Brenton Strange, obviously. Emmanuel Pregnon could be a starting level guard for you. You added him in the third round of the NFL draft, along with Jalen Husky, who could maybe add something in the safety room, whether that's, he does take a spot from a guy like Eric Murray or whatever, maybe he battles with Caleb Ransaw, whatever the case may be. And at linebacker, they clearly wanted to go younger with Foye Oluokun, Ventrell Miller, and others for if you're Jacksonville not willing to pay Devin Lloyd what he got from Carolina. And I'll just say this. In theory, the Jaguars are as good as they were in 2025. And I know, people will be sitting there saying, like, there's some things that they're a prime regression candidate and that they're, only playing 6 true home games because they've got the 2 home games in London this year. And, there's going to be a regression. Like, you can't lose Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne and be the same level team. They did a really good job in replacing the talent that left the building. And ultimately, I think they added some really good talent that is going to be able to contribute for them in 2026. Like, this team could very well be better than what they were last year, who won 13 games. And to add on top of all of that, right? Because you added the talent, you brought back Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence, another year in that system. Oh, yeah, you brought back both of your coordinators who both got NFL head coaching interviews this offseason in Grant Udinski and Anthony Campanelli. Like, the coaching staff is intact. The players, the talent is as good, if not better, than it was last year, but you're somehow going to regress and not be a playoff team. Make it make sense. Like, look, in conclusion, many things can happen before the start of the season, and football games are not won on paper. They're not lost on paper. And there's a lot of stuff that we've got to see how the Jaguars look between now, the start of the season, once they get into the season, and just overall, what their evolution in terms of this Liam Cohen era is going to look like. That being said, to have them out of the playoffs and not even a top half of the league team in the National Football League, to me is just, I think we're jumping the gun a little bit. And I think that's where analytics needs to meet, the football aspect and the human element of it all before we jump to these kind of conclusions whenever we're making these lists. Because, again, what happened to ESPN, man? I still can't get over it. But, guys, you let me know. Where would you rank the Jaguars in the NFL? I'm not saying they're overwhelmingly the best team in the National Football League, but to me, they're going to be right in the mix of the things here with the Houston Texans in their own division and with some of the AFC's just overall best in their conference and overall just in the NFL. Like, dare I say they're, a top 10 team? I think they're fringe, if not definitely in the top 10. But you guys let me know down in the comment section below. And that'll be it for this episode of Jags Now, presented by Chat Sports and also our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. Until next time, guys, make sure you have subscribed, turn on your notifications, and we'll see you on the next one.